Hi, this is Greg Hensel with the Saving Swami. We're here in Clifton Park, New York for 2 Saving Swami Savvy Saturday interviews in a row, but this one's a little different. We're here for a different reason. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we're here at the dance department on Crescent Road, and we're here to interview Lauren Kent. Lauren successfully owned the dance department for 10 years. She started dancing when she was 3. That's 30 years ago. Owned the dance department from the time she was 23 to 33, and she has an incredible story to tell. We're going to go inside, we're going to sit down with Lauren, and we're going to talk to her and hear this incredible story. Let's go inside and find Lauren. And it's a nice big open one-room studio, so Lauren's not too hard to find. And there she is. Hey, Lauren.
Hello.
Thank you for sitting down with us. We can't wait to hear your story because it's a wonderful one. So nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Lauren and I have known each other for a long time, as my daughter Zoe has been dancing here at the dance department since she was 3 years old. And that's where the story has like a pretty unique connection. Zoe is now 14 years old, so she's got 11 years in dance. And the kids here, because of the culture that's created, we talk so much about businesses and culture, and the culture you created when you took over the dance department back when you were 23, which is over 10 years ago, is that you're known to the kids as Mama Laura.
Yes.
And that's really amazing.
Yes.
Because you really are for Zoe 100%. And I know this to be true from so many of the kids, because when we travel together on the competition team and then here picking the kids up, dropping them off, picking them up, dropping off, picking up, you always hear, you know, the banter and everything that goes on behind the scenes of the parents as well.
Right.
And everyone considers you their second mom or their third mom or their second grandma or whatever. Not
Yeah.
the age reason, but
Yeah.
just because the caring and kindness that you've always brought to the table here. And you have an incredible story, and we really want everyone to know a lot of the things that probably people don't know, not only about getting started really early, doing something you're passionate and something you desire, starting a business without experience, we'll talk about that right away,
Right.
but then going over some other things as well, some challenges, trials and tribulations, not only in business but personal,
Right.
and then now where you stand in the dance department as, you know, really a premier dance instructor and teacher here, and the dance department lives on, and it's
Yes.
so wonderful.
Yes.
So we'll go back to, and I said something on the introduction to the lead-in that you're 33 and you've been dancing for 30 years.
Yes.
So let's start at the very beginning at 3 years old. I kind of know what that's like because Zoe danced
Yes.
at 3, and it's the 1 foot and this. But,
Yeah.
you know, talk about that passion and how you got started. Probably didn't know a lot at 3, right?
No, I didn't. So my sister started, I'm the youngest obviously, so my sister started dancing when she was 3, and that's how I got into it. I started dancing locally in Schenectady at Merit Dance Center. And right from the beginning, I just absolutely loved it. I started competing at 6 years old, which was so exciting. I mean, you know, the difference between a recital and a competition isn't much per se as performing, but you get that, you know, drive to want to do better for the judging aspect of it. So I really loved that part of it. And then from then on, my passion just kept growing. You know, by 11, 12 years old, I started to do a lot of summer programs over the summer at University at Buffalo, Hamilton College, in New York City. Every chance that I got, my mother took me to New York City to take classes. So it's just been a very exciting, you know, journey for my dance career, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so started at 3.
Yeah.
This is incredible. I know what that's like.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of responsibility for the parents as well.
Right,
To make
yeah.
sure you're at class, you don't miss class. You've committed
Right.
to being part of something. Doesn't matter if you're 3 or you're 20.
Right.
You've committed. That's great. And then the travel team and the competition and all those things, and going to New York City when you're 12.
Right.
I mean, expanding your horizons.
Right.
Probably gave you a feeling of, you know, I can accomplish anything.
Right.
And that's just so invaluable and priceless at a young age.
Yes.
Then we go through, I want to talk a little bit about this because a lot of folks probably don't know about the dance program at Schenectady High School.
Yes.
And you were part of that in the very beginning.
Yes. So I think I was in 9th grade when it first started, which was so exciting because, you know, you live in Schenectady, which is considered an inner city school. And, you know, it's such a diverse population there. And it was so exciting to be a part of a school that has all these opportunities for students, whether it's in the technology or computer science, but then the school expanded to have dance at the school as well. So that was super exciting to be able to, go to school and do dance as well as outside of dance. So it started as a very small program. We were dancing in the wrestling room and on the stage where it didn't have any mirrors, so that's kind of a challenge for a dancer to learn without a mirror. We started as a very small program, just a few people, one single teacher, and it has grown into a whole wing of the high school, a whole arts program, a whole art degree that you can get, which I got as well as a graduating senior. I got the art degree and the regular Regents degree. So that was pretty fantastic experience to have in high school that not a lot of people have unless you go to performing arts high school.
Yeah, so you got 4 years experience in at high school.
Right.
Plus
yeah.
when you had started at 3, so when you graduated high school, essentially you had almost 15 years experience dancing already.
Right, yes.
And then comes the tryout,
Yes.
rehearsal with Juilliard.
Yes, you send in a videotape of you dancing, and they, kind of say yes or no, you can come audition for the college. And I got a call that I was allowed to come and audition for Juilliard, which is such a big, amazing experience. I had been to previous Juilliard performances, and they're just so amazing. And that's kind of like, that was my kind of goal back then, to be able to even go there. So I got to audition there. It was, very tight. There's a lot of people there. So that was super exciting. And I auditioned at several colleges, and I ended up deciding on going to the Hart Conservatory in Connecticut.
Hartford, Connecticut, right?
In Hartford, Connecticut, yes.
Yeah, talk about that experience, because I know that that we go down different roads and paths,
Right.
and they lead you to ultimately where you are today, no matter where you started. And something interesting happened there, because you were accepted to the Hart Conservatory.
Right.
And I know your heart was set on going there.
I was very set on it. I had all my paperwork in, I had a room assignment. We were very close to the date of, moving in. And my mom just had, a feeling in her heart. She said, I can't send you to this 4-year conservatory, which is a lot of money that I needed to take out in financial aid, to have you graduate in 4 years with just a dance degree, because it was just strictly a dance conservatory. So it didn't offer, a science degree or anything like that. So, my mom kind of made the heart-wrenching decision to not let me go to this college, which I was very, very upset about. It took me a while to get over it, and therefore, decided to just stay locally and go to a few different colleges. I had, kind of a rough time finding my place in college, deciding on what place would be best for me. So I ended up going to Russell Sage a little bit, and, Schenectady Community College, and I ended up at Skidmore, yes.
And there's kind of the timeline, because you really wanted to go
Right.
to the Hart Conservatory, but you're now local.
Right.
So you've got to do some things. You're a kid. You've
Right.
got to support yourself at college.
Yes.
So you're looking for different jobs, and we all bounce around when we're young at different
Yeah.
part-time jobs. But, we're here now at the dance department at 30, you're 33. You
Yeah.
just owned the dance department for 10 years. But you got started here when you were 19 part-time, right?
I did,
At that
yes.
same period of time.
Yes, I did. That same period of time, the previous owner had a friend or relative that worked with my mother at the hospital, and she kind of casually mentioned, I know your daughter is a dancer. I have somebody that's looking for somebody to fill in for a maternity leave. So I came in for an interview with the previous owner, and she hired me, and then I just stayed on the staff until she decided that she wanted to retire the dance business and hand it over to me.
Yeah, that in and of itself is a very interesting story.
Yes.
Because you were 23, right?
I was 23.
You
yes.
had that conversation where she said, "What, I'm
Right.
too old with dealing with the dance moms, and I
Right.
want to retire." Or
Right. Yeah, she was just like, I want to be done with this chapter in my life. So I'm going to sell the business, but I wanted to offer it to you before I offer it out to the public. And, me being 23 years old, I was young, not married yet. I was like, absolutely, I jumped on the chance, and, I had zero business, expertise or qualifications, anything like that. I had tons of dance experience, and I knew how to teach a class, but the business aspect of it was very, very difficult for me to learn because I was in it already. So I didn't have a chance to kind of learn the way to go and then own a business. I was just kind of thrown into the situation. So I had to kind of learn backwards how to run a successful business.
That's the next piece of the equation, which is so difficult to get a lot of folks to understand.
Right.
How difficult it is owning and operating a business, even when you have a lifetime experience,
right.
No matter what industry it is.
Right.
And then you take the fact that you're 23 and you have no business experience,
right.
but you have a lot of dance experience.
That
doesn't always translate. Another story that resonates for a lot of the people that watch the videos and the Savvy Saturday interviews we do, is we talk about the person who is really good at one part of their job or one part of the business that they love and they're passionate about. Now all of a sudden the idea is, well, I want to own the business.
Right.
Then you learn some hard lessons quickly about payroll and about overhead and about accounting and about doing the books and about taxes and about employees and about clients and customers and clients and customers, in your case, with kids who are dancing.
Right.
Every single person that dances is 18 years of age or younger, correct?
Yes, unless we have the adult classes, right.
So they all have dance moms and dance dads, and you learn very quickly that way. But another recurring theme, because that all is the sensible part of owning and operating, starting or buying a business, but then you have something that trumps all of that, and that's your passion.
Yes.
So that passion just drove you, and what a lot of people do who ultimately end up being very successful because they stick with their passion and their commitment,
right,
is that you just said, well, listen, dance is my life, I'm passionate about it, I'll figure it out.
Right.
Yes. And obviously you did a wonderful job figuring it out, and passion does trump just about everything else, and it's so true. But a lot of funny stories along the way about at the time, probably at 23, you thought sacrifice and different things at that point were much more important than they really were.
Right.
But because of your lack of experience, I know a story you told me about a costume or something.
Yes, we order costumes. So me being 23 years old, I had no kids, so I didn't know too much about, growth spurts or anything like that. So we order our costumes kind of in the beginning of the season. This one particular child had a very significant growth spurt throughout the year, and when we got the recital costumes, it was just too small. And on our website, on all of our paperwork, it states that we're not responsible for alterations of the costumes. Well, this one particular dance dad was not very happy about that, and he was, as a 23-year-old, in my face screaming at me about his daughter's dance costume. So back then, I kind of cowered and was like, okay, I'll fix it. Even though it clearly states that I did not have to fix it. So that was a super challenging thing for me to learn, is that I am right, and this is my business, and you have to listen to what I have to say, because it's clearly stated that you have to listen to that. So, and back then I had a very thin skin, a lot of things really got to me and ate me alive for months and months and months. And so learning how to deal with the disappointment and, the people saying that I don't know what I'm doing and all that stuff, it was very hard for me to kind of push that aside and keep plugging forward and, just instilling all the love and education to my dancers that it was just all worth it, and I have to, keep moving on and keep getting a thicker skin. So it was a hard lesson to learn, but it was worth it.
Well, yeah, 10 years later now, you probably look back and say, well, that's no like the smallest thing that could ever happen to anyone who's a business owner, or even on the personal side, is that, one customer's out of 100 is upset about one costume.
Right, yeah.
Funny.
Seems minute now.
And then the culture you created here because I know that you tried to exclusively only hire, train, and work with, other instructors under you who you know and trusted,
Yes.
that you had a personal relationship with.
Yes.
Talk about why and again, we speak a lot about culture, and we speak a lot about mindset within a business, and that's a really wonderful mindset to have here, where there is such an incredible personal relationship and interaction that's built over years with the dancers and their families.
Right.
So you have the instructors who are like family to you.
Right. Yes. It was always very important to me to keep the atmosphere very positive. I had a very positive, close-knit family at my dance studio growing up, so I wanted to keep that feeling alive now that I was in charge, to kind of keep that family bond. So every time I needed, a new teacher, I would immediately go to, friends that danced with me, people that got recommended to me by close family, because I wanted to be able to have that close of a relationship with my employees, so that they were happy, so that they were teaching the way that I, felt they needed to be teaching, and keep a very positive, close relationship between the students, their families, and the staff at the studio.
And you always have, again, because I'm kind of privy to
Yes.
some of the things that maybe you and some of the other instructors don't hear, being a dance dad myself.
Yes.
Try not to be the high level dance dad that a lot of other folks are, and just go with the flow.
Right.
Because I also know how difficult it is to run a business,
Right.
to run, own, and operate a successful business. There's
Right.
certain hard lines you have to take in business. The idea of the customer always being right is a guideline.
Right.
It's a guideline. There's certain reasonable doubt associated
Right.
with the customer always being right. And 99% of the time you are working with that idea of the customer is always right, but that then are certain things to protect you as the owner of the business that you have to enforce from time to time. And a legitimate consumer, or someone who is wise to the ways of doing business, understands, hey, listen, that rule, that's in place for a reason. That's in place so next year there is a dance department that our daughter or our son can dance at.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny to me when, people come to me and say, now I don't know anything about dance, but and I'm like, well, I do. That's why I'm here. And that's why I'm, giving you these, reasons for your dancer, so that they can be successful, but also be safe, and also, keep the love and passion for dance, and not push them to a limit that they hate it, they get hurt, or they want to quit. That's the thing that I don't want. I want to, take it slowly. Their education, they have to be mindful of their body. They have to be mindful of, their emotional capacity to take on these things, where it's hard for a dancer nowadays, especially in this generation, for you to say, well, you don't have your right leg split, so you have to work on it. Some kids these days just want it instantly. So we have to kind of keep the drive and the passion, saying, if you want to do these things, you have to work on this first. So we have to, keep the love and the passion moving, and always be mindful of their safety emotionally and physically. So all my teachers from past years and currently, we strive to keep that part of it, the base, their education, their love, and their passion, very strong, in order to help them grow. So it's a gold mine to find parents that support you in that. So some people want, well, we didn't win first. Well, but they grew, they had fun, they love it, they want to keep coming back.
The attention to detail makes all the difference. The slower development over time to build a well-rounded individual. With dance is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
And it becomes family. It becomes family. It's, you're not like, well, when am I going to dance or not going to dance? You come in, you have a wonderful experience, you build the relationship, and you say, wow, I'm going to be here for the next 15 years.
Yes.
It's incredible, and that's not easy to do. And doing that successfully and being thrown into the cauldron at 23 years old, is remarkable.
Right.
And now at 33,
Yes.
which gets to, I mean, that's just a remarkable story, but there's other pieces to this story that are really impactful to people and for folks to understand how life can change in the
Right.
snap of a finger or one phone call.
Right.
You're now an instructor and a teacher, and still a very, very big part and a key ingredient, like an essential component to the success of dance department, but not in the ownership role any longer.
Right.
And that whole process ultimately started about 18 months ago.
Yes.
When you kind of maybe detected physically something might be wrong. And take us through that. And I know it's really emotional and tough, but it's this wonderful story from that point 18 months ago and that
Right.
first maybe diagnosis to today is night and day.
Yes.
So let's bring folks through that whole transition.
Yes. So my youngest daughter was about a year and a half old. And I had noticed some pain in my left breast. And I, being the mom of, a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, I was just thinking that it was from them jumping on me, playing, something like that. So I kind of put it off a little bit, but it kept persisting, kept bothering me. So I went into the doctor and scheduled a mammogram. So then I, went in for the mammogram, and things happened very quickly between further tests, biopsies, and then I finally received the diagnosis through a phone call on a Friday, May 6th. And thank God my mother was there with me at the time, because my husband was off on a golf trip for a bachelor party. So, you get this phone call, and I just, I'm frozen and I don't know what to do, and she's giving me all this information, and I just kind of had to hand my mom the phone and be like, you take care of this. And I had to go upstairs and I had to call my husband, and it was a very hard day. But luckily I have two sisters, but they're both in healthcare. So they, pulled every string that they could grasp at, and, called in every favor. And we luckily were able to get into the surgeon that day. So meeting the surgeon, kind of meeting all the doctors, all these appointments, more tests, was a very, thank you. It was a kind of a whirlwind couple of weeks. And then I had the daunting task of, telling the studio family, what was going on.
Well, that's a very, very tough. May is a tough month.
Right. It's we're gearing up for our recital, which is usually the first weekend in June. So I had to, come back from all these appointments and kind of sit everybody down and be like, this is what's going on. We're going to work through it. We're going to have, a fantastic recital, because I was very determined, to keep that part of their lives, sacred and still happen the way that it should happen for them. I was very adamant about that. So when it came down to scheduling surgery for my double mastectomy, I was like, I do want it to happen as soon as possible, but at the same time, this is the date for my recital, so it'd be really nice if it was after that, which, was kind of hard for, my loved ones and my husband to kind of grasp the fact that that was also very important to me. So I ended up having a double mastectomy.
So you weren't Mama Lore
Right.
because of your diagnosis and what happened. You were always Mama Lore.
Yeah.
And because of that, the delay, where it really, literally, your passion and commitment to the children trumped your own personal well-being and health to delay the surgery.
Right.
Because you had seen in a very short period of time there was a change physically where
Right.
you had to get in immediately. Right?
I did. There's a very quick and intense growth in my tumor between the time of diagnosis and surgery. So it was very crucial that I do get it out as soon as possible.
And you went in, the the Friday you found out when your husband's out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God your mom was there, like you said. And you found out on a Friday, which was May 15th?
May 6th.
May 6th.
Mm-hmm.
June 15th, you're already in for surgery.
Yes.
But in the meantime there, you're going through a million different emotions,
Mm-hmm.
Personally, with family,
Mm-hmm.
with your husband, with the kids,
Mm-hmm.
with these kids,
Right.
and you've got a recital coming up, you've scheduled the surgery. I mean, it just to handle that 6-week period of time is a miracle. And that's, your story is so remarkable, it like gives me chills.
Yeah, it was very intense. It was very hard. Getting through that period was very difficult because of you know, like you said, what I'm dealing with inside my, you know, personal life, my family, but also the girls. The girls at the studio, I had to keep that, you know, brave face and be very strong for them throughout it all because of you know, the personal attachment that I have to all of them, for them to, you know, watch me fight it and be strong was very important to me.
And you did that. You did it.
Yes, I did.
You did it.
I did it.
It was
I made it
remarkable to
through.
see, knowing what was going on. It was remarkable to see. It's a champion moment.
Yes.
And then it doesn't end there, because
No.
June 15th,
Yeah.
you had the surgery, and then there's follow-up appointments, and they do certain tests to make sure that, I mean, they had discovered, what, 2 masses that they
2
were going to
masses,
remove.
yes.
You had full mastectomy. And then there's tests after that, and,
Yeah.
and what happens then?
So after the mastectomy, they realized that they missed the second tumor, which was, you know, in the under breast fatty tissue. So initially we were concerned that it then became, you know, a stage 3 cancer where it had traveled, but we were, you know, they told us that it was still considered breast cancer because it was still in the breast. So I had to go back in, you know, get another needle placement biopsy where they just kind of stuck a needle in where the tumor was, and we're just like, okay, now wait here until we can put you in surgery. So then I had to go in for another surgery to get that tumor removed, and then I get the results back from that surgery, and there were positive margins, which meant that they may have missed some of the cancer cells. So I had to go back in for a third surgery just to clean out the area of the second surgery, just to 100% make sure that it was all gone.
And how long is the period of time from the first surgery to the third surgery?
A month and a half.
Month and a half. So that what brings you into July
Yes.
at that point?
Yes.
So between May and July, you've got the diagnosis, all the tests, 3 different surgeries, and the follow-up, and then you come out and you would think that was enough,
Yeah.
but it's just the beginning.
Right, and it's just the beginning.
And this is something that I've spent a little bit of time just trying to kind of wrap my head around and understand. The aftercare program is equally or more important than the surgery itself, isn't it?
Right, yes. I mean, there's definitely several ways that you can take care of, treat cancer. My specific route, I guess you could say, was surgery, then chemo, then radiation. So after my surgery, I had to wait a little bit longer to start chemo. So the middle of July, I had the last surgery, and then August 3rd, I had my first chemo, which was I had a port put in the first surgery. So that was difficult to, go in every other week to the oncologist's office, have them put, this big needle in my chest and essentially inject poison into my heart, So that was very difficult, wrapping my head around, you know, what was going to happen to me for the next 4 months. So also right around that time, I lost a close friend to cancer. So, you know, amidst my chemo treatments, I'm having to go to her funeral services.
So much to handle in such a short period, in a lifetime, and imagine.
Ooh, yeah.
In a 6-month period of time.
Yeah.
And all along, the studio marches on.
Yep.
So through
Definitely.
the surgery and through the chemo and through, I mean, from the kids and the family of the kids' perspective, because it goes back to your passion and commitment for what you love so much.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't skip a beat.
No, and I very much try to be present and be, you know, as happy and as strong as I usually am throughout the whole thing. You know, I say that it took, you know, courage for those new parents to walk in September and see me with a bald head, you know, pale skin, and, you know, keep coming back, because, you know, you walk into a situation like that and you're like, what am I getting myself into? What am I, you know, putting my, you know, 3-year-old through, you know, seeing, you know, this person that they're supposed to look up to and learn from, go through this. So it was a big learning experience for me. You know, kind of a soul searching moment every time I had to, you know, pick myself off the couch and drive here and, you know, be creative and be inspiring and teach these kids that, you know, this isn't going to stop me. So you got to push, because I'm going to push.
Yeah.
So it was
leadership and ability. You're like a beacon to all the kids, and you know, that extraordinary level of doing whatever it takes 24/7 around the clock is something that's so lost, I think, in a lot of businesses. Mm-hmm. Because nothing was going to stop you, not only on the
right.
personal side, as we know, once we get through the story,
yeah.
and the story has such a happy ending, and it continues, which is so beautiful. But to see that level of interaction with you, the business that you loved, mm-hmm. if we just had that from a small percentage of other business owners and entrepreneurs and people who have a dream out there, I think right. The world would be such a better place. Yeah,
it took definitely a lot of love in my heart to keep coming, because you know, you're going through this horrific situation, and in my mind, I needed to spend as much time as I possibly could with my children, with my husband, just because I don't know what the future holds, you know, health-wise. So it took a lot of strength and love for these children and their families to come every day and you know, put my best foot forward and put my happy face on, because they are watching. They're always watching, and you know, they're watching how I'm handling it, and I'm helping them handle it. So it was great. It was a great distraction, you know, from all the awfulness that I was going through. You know, I'd take my medicine and I'd come here and stand in front of the class and and teach and you know, keep that love going within them. So
we have the diagnosis,
yes.
And then we have the 3 surgeries, and then we have the aftercare, which is chemo, and then we get to the last piece of it,
yes,
right, which is the radiation part.
The radiation part, yep, that was a little less physically draining, but it was a different type of physically draining. I was just completely and utterly exhausted all day, whereas with the chemo it was every other week. So I had, you know, depending on the treatment and the medicine, I had anywhere from 3 to 7 days where I was awful. But then after that, I had, that whole next week to kind of lift myself back up again before it would hit again. Whereas with the radiation, it was just constant, every single day. I had 28 radiation treatments, so 28 straight days of going there and, getting the radiation, which is not physically painful while you're doing it, but my skin was, very much, they say it's like a bad burn, but it was like leather. It was very, and it hurt to the touch. It was very red, it was purple. So once radiation was done, you kind of get, all the tests back done again and see where your body's at. I had a really bad cold over the summer or over the winter while I was in chemo and radiation, and the cough just wouldn't let up. So I had another CAT scan of my lung, and they had seen something on there that they weren't sure what it was, and it was kind of a little bit too small to biopsy. So they wanted to give me 6 months to kind of see if it would grow, which is absolutely terrifying from a cancer patient's point of view, or that it would just kind of dissipate.
A lot of sleepless nights.
Right. So yeah, we had to wait that 6 months, but I got my last CAT scan in July, and I was completely cancer-free, which was the best day ever. So it was fantastic just for them to say, yeah, it's gone. So nonchalantly when you're, so paranoid about it, and, we all cried, my husband cried. It was great.
It was a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then in 6 months, if we go back 6 months, I should
Right.
say, to the spring,
Right.
you started because of where you were and your commitment. I keep using that word, but there's nobody else who could get through a situation like this with their business and with the responsibility of the kids and their love of the children and the children's families. I know, because you've always shown so much love to our family and to the
Yes.
other families as well, and that's just who you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not able to give that every day, and maybe even one child will be affected by that,
Right.
you've got to do something.
Right.
And you started about 6 months ago to start to phase maybe a different something into
Right.
the mix, and that was you doing what you love with dance,
Mm-hmm.
but not being in the ownership role of the business.
Right.
And that also incredibly emotional, I know, because of how much you love the business. Maybe share a little bit of that and where you were at then with your mind. You were just finishing up chemo, I guess?
Yeah,
Or not, excuse me, radiation, yeah.
Yep, I was just finishing up radiation, and my husband and I kind of sat down, and I said, something has to give here, and it can't be my family. My family will always come first, always has and always will. And it can't be my students, because I love them so much. So we kind of decided that being the owner of the studio just wasn't the right path for me going from here on out, because of what I've been through, because of how much I needed to be in my family's life, and because we just don't know what the future holds for my health. I started to think about who, if I wanted it to be, a public, who wants to buy a dance studio? But that didn't really sit well with me, because I so closely work with my staff that I needed somebody that I could trust, somebody that I knew would have the same love and passion for the business as I did. So one of the studio mothers.
Well, that's the same culture as every
Right.
person that you worked with and had
Right.
here as your instructor. So why would the owner be any different?
Right.
I mean, you know what you know, and you're comfortable with what you're comfortable with, and that guarantees when you pass the baton
Right.
that you're going to continue the same culture moving
Right,
forward.
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
they're only going to know how to run the business from how you've run the business.
Right.
When you pass it over. That's
Right.
interesting.
Yep. And she's a very a very great person, and she was the first person that I thought of. And you know, I obviously get very emotional, so I kind of laid it all out in a text, and I was like, I'm sorry that this has to be through a text message, but I wanted to get it all out before we talk. So she said, let's meet. We came here, and you know, she grabbed my hands and she said, let's do this together. So that was a very powerful moment for me, because she said, you know, I'm only going to do this if you're with me. You are why they come here. So you need to be here. She's like, I'll do everything that I can to help you, to help the studio, to keep this here for them. But you are the one that they come for. So that was
And you must
very
have,
awesome.
you must have had you must have had the immediate understanding and
Yes.
confirmation that you would pick the right person.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. She's an amazing person. And throughout, you know, from February, March of last year until, you know, now when she has taken over the business, it's just constant, what do you think about this? You know, bouncing ideas off of each other, of trying to improve, you know, the business. And when it comes down to decisions about the dancers and, you know, their classes and everything like that, she's like, that's you. So I'm gonna hand this, you know, question to you. So she's very, very good at keeping my passion for the studio alive in a way that I couldn't do anymore. So
It's great.
Yeah.
It's just so nice to see the dance department continue to move forward and to continue to do great things.
yes,
And to be a positive influence over so many children.
yes,
And from what I understand, and this is something else that I recently learned, is that all dancers as children always dream about dancing with the Rockettes.
yes.
And you just recently were able to dance with the Rockettes.
I was.
And
yes.
this is another part of the happy ending to this wonderful story.
Yes.
You've been recently interviewed and spent some time with the Today Show people.
Mm-hmm.
Also a lot of local media as well. But the Today Show is really the pinnacle
Mm-hmm.
of the other end
Mm-hmm.
of the beginning of the story.
Right.
So the Today Show contacted you. A family friend had entered you in some time. They had asked for people to enter the story, some
Right.
really great stories.
Yes.
And your name was given to them.
Yes, a family friend kind of wrote into the Today Show about me and my family, and you know, my diagnosis and the struggles that we had throughout. And it seemed like out of the blue to me, they called my husband and kind of filled them in with what was going on, and they called me the next day, and I spent, you know, an hour on the phone with the producer, and you know, same type of thing. She just wanted to know my story and everything about me. And at the end of the conversation, she goes, oh, how's next Tuesday for us coming to your house? And I was like, oh, okay. Kind of out of the blue that I didn't think that that's where the interview was headed. So they came, and you know, we did an interview in my home with me and my husband. You know, they did some filming of us with the girls, and they actually wanted to come here to the dance studio to film me teaching and film the dancers. And that was an amazing experience for all of us, because the girls absolutely loved it. And then at the end of that interview day, she was like, okay, well, how's next Tuesday for you to come to New York City to do more interviews? So I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, me thinking that this is just another part of the interview, and, you know, she said it was a little bit of a panel. So we get to New York City, and everybody's kind of dilly-dallying. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, okay, just cross the street to Radio City, and then that building over there, that's where we're going. So we're walking across the street to New York City. So, you know, you're crossing a New York City street. I'm like looking every way to, you know, with my two girls and my husband. And I look straight, and there's kind of a wall of cameras, and out pops Hoda Copy. And I was like, oh my God.
It's Hoda.
And I was like, whoa, oh my God. So then she's like, you know, we have to kind of spill the beans a little bit that you aren't here for an interview, and you know, people wrote in because you're so loved, and your husband, you know, was in on it the whole time, and we hear you love to dance, and we think we have some, you know, great teachers for you. And I'm like, okay. And then they kind of open the doors to Radio City, and all the Rockettes come out. I was like, oh my God. So we went in, and me and my girls got to dance with the Rockettes, and all of them were so super sweet and so supportive. And what's really funny is they had actually planned for like 2 hours of filming for me to learn this like Rockette dance, and it took me like 20 minutes. And they were like, that's never happened before. They were like, we didn't plan on you like actually knowing what you were doing. I was like, well, so that was kind of nice that they, you know, were so sweet, and so they were just so excited to be a part of my story as well. So that it was a very, it was a life-changing day and experience.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. What a story. What a
Yes.
story. And such a, I mean, that's a lifetime worth of story in a
Right.
very, very short timeline.
Yeah.
And the greatest thing is that we're now in October of 2017. And you're as healthy as you could possibly be.
Yes.
And the dance department is as healthy as it could possibly be.
Yes.
And all of the recent memories are all positive.
Right.
And that's the greatest way to end this interview.